morning. Got a bit of rain early this morning, so my curing winter squashes are extra clean this morning. Luckily I brought in the amaranth that's still drying, otherwise I would have to wait longer for that to dry. So I watered the garden last night, which probably helped convince it to rain. Seems to be an ongoing thing. We are getting temperatures in the high 40s at night, and then up to the 70s during the day. So we are in my ideal temperature range. Like, if it could do this all the time, I would be very excited. But I am coming to check on the fall transplants. It's been 6 days since I put them in the greenhouse. And if you don't routinely grow radishes, might I recommend radishes, because they are probably some of the faster things to just pop up, and they look so cheerful and happy. So those are my round black radishes. More radishes. More radishes. And then my transplants of the larger variety look a little bit happier. When you move little plant babies to their new resting place, after starting them in containers, they can often go through transplant shock. So they look a little bit sad and but give them a couple days and bounce back and they're good to go. It is almost always cabbage moth season, and I learned last winter that if I let my plants sit out in the open before I put them in the greenhouse, I will make it cabbage moth season when there's snow on the ground, but inside the greenhouse instead. So that's why there's bug knitting. So almost always cabbage moth season unless there's snow on the ground, and then if I facilitate a habitat for them in the greenhouse, then it's also cabbage moth season, because why not? I'm getting handfuls of cucamelons. I'm enjoying iced basil tea. Some of my late starts for tomatoes are starting to get me tomatoes. That should be the sunrise, so that'll be a yellow tomato. And then I've got at least one of the Frank's Iranian that's flowering over here. This guy. So he's doing pretty well. I'll let the cucamelons go until they don't want to go anymore. One of the reasons I grew cucamelons in the greenhouse is because I wanted to extend that season. Usually about now I'll be getting handfuls of them at a time, whereas the rest of the season prior to this I'm getting like onesie twosies. I'm still not getting enough of them to, I don't know, have like a small bowl or something, but it's definitely more than I would be getting with the season extension now than I've had previous years. And then the outside garden, every couple days I'm coming out and harvesting out here. It's starting to look ragged, but it's still giving me some things. And then I had one addition that has always been the plan for the greenhouse, but I've not had time, not had any really excess time, and that's the stairs on the west side. So there's a slight slope to the lawn in that I can walk in at level on the east side of the greenhouse, walk through, and then it's maybe 1.5 feet step here. So I dug this out the other day. I've got pea gravel underneath the stones here, the cinder blocks, and then I have these set up with pea gravel and sand just for drainage. It'll allow me some traction. And then this is a pretty sizable step for me to be able to wheel my garden cart over here and then step up in there. And it also, instead of having this sloped, it makes this walkway a little bit more feasible, which would probably work better if I cleared out some of the overzealous squash, but I kind of want to see how many squash are hiding under there. I've got one dangling over by my fertilizer bucket. I also decided that I am going to pretty much always grow cosmos, because even though they look a little sad this morning, I have consistently been finding bees sleeping in them in the morning. There's a moth chilling. I'll put a photo up of the sleeping bees because I have been excitedly coming out with my coffee in the morning, looking for sleeping bees, taking a bunch of photos of that. Last night I came out to let the dogs out one more time, and pumpkins. I let the dogs out one more time, and the tobacco jasmine at the east entrance to the greenhouse was so fragrant. And I found out that puppy Oak not only likes vegetables, but he wants to eat like hummingbird moths. So that's a little disturbing. Hopefully he'll grow out of that, but I like the hummingbird moths. It was neat to walk past that tobacco jasmine and just have this like cloud of fragrance. It was very noticeable, delightful. So I think I'm pretty much always going to be doing the tobacco jasmine and the cosmos. Those have absolutely won me over. And then last year I decided I would never really be without asters anymore, because I love that as the rest of your plants are starting to look a little bit ragged and sad, asters are coming into bloom. And that's glorious. Like, I really enjoy that. And then greenhouse wise, I'm shifting into things that are for eating later. Oriental greens, mostly, root crops, radishes. I don't think I did any beets in here, mostly because I'm the only one that likes beets in our house, but I was talking with husband the other day and about how the gardening style has changed. So when I first started, I had a lot of, like, a couple crops and not a lot of variety, and not a lot during the winter. So as I've done this every year, I've changed up and tweaked things, which is why you see so much storage squash or winter squash. Your squash is called summer or winter depending on when you eat it. So these are intended to be stored and eaten later. A lot of herbs I harvest, I dry, and I use those throughout the season. I'm still using a bunch of mixed basil from like 2 years ago. Year ago? Something like that, somewhere in there. And every year I grow basil because it's nice to have fresh as well. But it's the nature of learning that you do things incorrectly, or not ideally when you first begin. And gardening is so regional that being in zone 4, there's only so many of us in these colder climates. And so finding those kinds of resources to be like, okay, well, here's what I tried. What are other people doing? And that is largely what prompted me to start vlogging. I am hoping that if you are struggling with different things that you're like, I've reached everything that I can think of on my own, I'm hoping you can look at some of the things that I've tried and learn from the things that didn't work out so well for me, or you can try in your region and say that they worked really well for you. A good example of this is I have tried for years to grow lemon balm, which is related to mint, which means it should be incredibly easy because it wants to take over everything. And everything I've read about lemon balm says it's full sun. Every year when I grow it in full sun, it dies. This year I put it in part shade, so it's getting bright indirect light. I've got it on the other side of that cinder block wall, but in the part shade for me, it's flourished. It's done really well. And I want lemon balm for tea, and I want a sizable amount so that I have enough to have tea. So sometimes what works for other people in their area doesn't necessarily work for you. Not everything is a one-to-one. And so I'm hoping that by taking you along with me, you're able to see the things that I've tried that do or don't work for me. And some of those things I've learned about from other people. I often think gardening is a lot like, I don't know, a magpie. You're stealing a whole bunch of information from a whole bunch of different places. You'll have these shiny bits of things that caught your attention and you're like, I want to try that. Some of it works and some of it doesn't. But everything I know, I've collected from a bunch of different locations. Not one source is going to be able to tell you this is what'll work exactly for you. And I frequently see suggestions of, here's the things that you should plant in this month. Well, that doesn't always translate to me directly. There's some experimentation that's up to you, personally, the gardener in your region, in your backyard. Because even gardeners in my small town do things differently. We have different microclimates. Someone who's surrounded by trees has better wind coverage. And so their gardens during the winter don't necessarily get all desiccated from the rushing wind that's dry and cold. I tarp my beds to try to limit that damage. I've tried cover crops. I've tried a combination of those things. The main point is I am happy you're here coming along with me, and I hope that we can compare notes and see what works well in your region, and I can see if it works well in mine. And if you try something that I've done and it turns out differently for you, or you found a way to make it work better, I want you to leave that in the comments below, because I think that engaging with each other like this is the best way we are all going to grow personally and all going to benefit from our garden growth. Thanks for coming along with me. I'll catch you next time.